7 deadly segments. After he'd got a couple of blocks from the unfortunate baker, the knackered old writer stopped momentarily and looked at his watch. This didn't make any sense. He didn't have anywhere to go, and no one was expecting him for as much as he knew. It must have been a reflex action. Like I said, his watch was a cheap Taiwan digital LCD jobby. He'd found it in a park and it still ran okay, although some of the segments had burned out and gone wonky. Sometimes it was easy to read the time, sometimes it was impossible, depending upon the configuration of the segments. 7-segment representations of numerals first appeared in US patents in the early 20th century as a technique for transmitting numbers telegraphically. They didn't become popular though until the advent of LED technology in the 1970s. This is what they look like. Each of the 10 numerals of the decimal system can be abstracted into a pattern of just 7 lines. This potentially gives us 128 different possible states, 11 of which are used for the decimal notation. The shape of any of these numerals is of course dependent on the binary configuration of the respective input voltages. The segments are traditionally signified A to G clockwise, with the top bar being A and the crossbar being G. The underlying shape of the segments is therefore the same as figure 8. It is better understood poetically as an infinity symbol rotated through 180 degrees. Although numeric representations seem uncontroversial to us now, in the 1970s these abstractions, especially for numbers 4 and 7, appeared so contrived as to be mnemonic rather than representation. The symbols looked like gibberish at first, but people soon got used to them. Although it was particularly harsh on enumerate people, who would otherwise have benefited the most from the new electronic calculators. Of course, anyone completely unfamiliar with Arabic numerals would have trouble understanding what was going on at all. The number of segments illuminated for a digit was completely unrelated to the quantity being described. If one were trying to intuitively reconstruct the sequence, it may not even be obvious that we are dealing with a numeric base of 10, since space, the blank cell with no segments illuminated, is not equivalent to 0 in our system of representation. And an interesting anomaly arises here. The first 3 non-zero digits, 1, 2, 3, are smaller quantities than the number of segments that are needed to represent them. The next 3, 4, 5, and 6, equal the number of segments that are needed to represent them. The last 3, 7, 8, and 9, exceed the number of segments that are needed to represent them. This, of course, conforms to the law of inverse relations. In the analysis of any unknown form, the search for symmetry is a useful starting point. We find that 2 and 5 possess reflectional symmetry, while 6 and 9 possess rotational symmetry. 0 and 8 possess both, while 3, 4 and 7 are completely asymmetrical. It seems likely that these latter figures would be classified provisionally as a different class of symbols distinct from the symmetric examples. One, of course, is deeply problematic, and space precludes its discussion here. Yeah, it could be amusing to imagine if the segments as a kind of cellular automata along the lines of John Conway's Game of Life, and we could try and determine the evolutionary rules that govern the evolution of each of these digits in sequence if that appealed to us.